Welcome to today's overview of important global events from February 17, 2026. Let's dive into various key topics affecting international relations and economies. First, we explore diplomatic activities in Geneva, a major focal point for global negotiation. The Iranian diplomacy talks are highlighted, illustrating its significance due to the nuclear discussions and ongoing tensions in Ukraine. Diplomatic maneuvers are critical in this geopolitics landscape. Next, we delve into the France-India partnership. The discussions center around the potential sale of 114 Rafale fighter jets, valued at approximately 33 billion euros. This move aims to bolster India's defense industry and ease geopolitical tensions in the region. Moving on, we address the concerning the relations between Algeria and France, after the detention of an Algerian diplomat in France in 2025. The French Interior Minister's visit symbolizes an effort to improve bilateral relations, particularly focusing on counterterrorism cooperation. A key health concern is raised regarding outdated pesticides used in Central America, as legal battles continue for justice on behalf of affected agricultural workers. This case raises awareness about international corporate responsibilities and environmental impacts. Finally, we touch on the devastating impact of the ongoing war in Ukraine. Continuous attacks have targeted Ukraine's energy infrastructure, leaving many in dire situations. As we review these news highlights, it's clear that global dynamics are shifting. Stay informed about these developments as they shape the future of international relations and our interconnected world. For regular updates, subscribe and follow along with our coverage on various platforms. Thank you for tuning in today.
These are the events of February 18, 2026, and why they matter. Turkey is reinforcing its position in the Horn of Africa, politically and economically. During his visit to Addis Ababa, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan reaffirmed support for the territorial integrity of states in the region, signaling opposition to any unilateral recognition of Somaliland. But this was not just diplomacy. Turkey and Ethiopia signed two major energy agreements covering electricity, renewable energy, energy efficiency, and cooperation in hydroelectric power plant equipment and turbine production. Meanwhile, Russia and Iran are accelerating their strategic alignment. They finalized details for the Rasht-Astara Railway in northern Iran, a key segment of the international north-south transport corridor. Contract will be signed in April. This corridor links Russia to the Indian Ocean via Iran, reducing reliance on Western-controlled maritime routes. At sea, Russian and Iranian naval forces will conduct joint exercises in the Gulf of Oman and the northern Indian Ocean. In the Caribbean, Cuba is deepening ties with Moscow. Cuban Foreign Minister arrived in Moscow for talks with Sergei Lavrov. After the meeting, Lavrov urged the US to end what he called a military maritime blockade of Cuba, while Rodriguez accused Washington of worsening the international order. France and Germany are clashing over the future combat air system. Merz warned that without coordination, European defense integration stalls, and NATO's European pillar weakens. Across regions, we see the same pattern: infrastructure corridors, energy leverage, sanctions diplomacy, and defense integration. Subscribe to Geopolitics RO.
These were the key geopolitical events of 19th of February 2026. Washington announced the full withdrawal of its roughly 1,000 troops from Syria, ending a decade-long military presence aimed at fighting the Islamic State. It was not simply a retreat. It marked a strategic recalibration. At the same time, Israeli security agencies were placed on high alert amid reports that the U.S. was preparing potential airstrikes against Iranian missile facilities and institutions linked to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Iran issued notices of missile exercises in its southern regions. While reducing its footprint in Syria, Washington maintained calibrated military pressure. Meanwhile, the United States strengthened its position in global supply chains. Uzbekistan signed strategic agreements in Washington, covering exploration and supply of critical minerals. In Central Africa, the Democratic Republic of Congo added the Rubaya coltan mine, responsible for roughly 15% of global tantalum supply, to a proposed cooperation framework with USA offering them access. Rare minerals power semiconductors, advanced electronics, and modern weapon systems. This was supply chain geopolitics in action. In Washington, President Donald Trump chaired the first meeting of the Board of Peace. The new body brought together representatives from more than 45 countries, from several Middle Eastern states, while major G7 countries declined to join. For the full breakdown, watch our video analysis. Click the link in the description. Put it all together. Withdrawal from Syria, pressure on Iran, control over critical minerals, a new reconstruction architecture. This is U.S. strategic repositioning. Like and subscribe to our channel, Geopolitics RO.
These are the key global events of February 20, 2026. First, a major setback for Trump as the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that several tariff measures exceeded presidential constitutional authority. The decision raises serious questions about potential refunds for more than $200 billion already collected. Second, Al-Qaeda appears to be elevating China in its list of global enemies, focusing new rhetoric on Beijing's treatment of Uyghur Muslims. This marks an evolution in jihadist propaganda, where China is no longer a peripheral target. Third, Putin hosted Madagascar's president in Moscow, signaling expanded cooperation. Russia is seeking deeper strategic ties with African states, including military, political, and economic cooperation, as interim leader of Madagascar looks for support amid domestic challenges following last year's coup. Fourth, in sports, Russia and Belarus will compete under their national flags at the Paralympic Games for the first time in 4 years. Ukraine has condemned the decision and announced a boycott of the opening ceremony, highlighting how major conflicts continue to spill into sport. Finally, in Latin America, Venezuela passed an amnesty law that could lead to the release of hundreds of political prisoners. However, key opposition figures remain excluded, and many detainees are still held, leaving families both hopeful and frustrated. These stories show how law, power, ideology, and security intersect across today's world. Like and subscribe for more analysis on Geopolitics RO. These are the key geopolitical events of February 21, 2026. First, in the United States, Trump raised the global tariff on imports to 15%, just 1 day after the Supreme Court ruled that his previous tariff regime exceeded presidential authority. This signals renewed escalation in global trade tensions and deepens institutional conflict in Washington. Second, Hungary announced it will block a €90 billion EU loan to Ukraine until Russian oil shipments through the Druzhba pipeline resume, using its veto. Energy remains a geopolitical weapon, and European unity on Ukraine is visibly fragile. Third, India and Brazil signed a strategic agreement on critical minerals and rare earths, aimed to build resilient supply chains and reduce dependence on China's dominance in rare earth production. Critical minerals are the new oil. Whoever controls them shapes the future of technology, defense, and economic power. Fourth, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation and several Arab states condemned remarks by U.S. Ambassador to Israel, who referred to a biblical claim over territory stretching from the Nile to the Euphrates. This undermines sovereignty and international law. When ideological narratives collide with the modern state system, regional stability becomes vulnerable. And finally, 86 nations adopted a non-binding declaration at the AI Impact Summit in New Delhi, calling for secure and trustworthy artificial intelligence. Global trade tensions, energy leverage, strategic minerals, territorial narratives, and artificial intelligence are reshaping the international order. Like and subscribe to Geopolitics RO. These are the key geopolitical events of February 22nd, 2026. First, Sudan has condemned Uganda for hosting Rapid Support Forces Commander Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo. Khartoum called the meeting a blatant disregard for documented atrocities and accused Kampala of backing a rebel force fighting the internationally recognized government. The conflict has displaced around 13 million people. Regional alignments in East Africa are shifting, and Sudan is signaling that support for the RSF will be treated as hostility toward the state itself. Second, Brazil's President Lula urged equal treatment in global trade after the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that Trump's tariff measures were not authorized under a 1977 law. This is a signal that emerging economies are pushing back against tariff-driven coercion. Third, U.S.-Iran tensions intensify. Trump has reportedly given Tehran 15 days to reach a nuclear agreement while expanding U.S. naval deployments in the region. Iran insists its program is civilian and demands sanctions relief. Military signaling, combined with a compressed diplomatic timeline, increases the risk of miscalculation in an already volatile region. Fourth, Denmark rejected Trump's claim that the U.S. would send a hospital ship to Greenland, stating that the territory's healthcare system is fully functional. Finally, Turkey and Saudi Arabia are preparing to sign the second phase of a 5-gigawatt renewable energy agreement at COP31 in Antalya. The deal combines solar, wind, and storage projects and could reach up to $5 billion. Energy transition is becoming a platform for geopolitical alignment, linking Gulf capital with Eurasian infrastructure ambitions. Like and subscribe to Geopolitics RO.